Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show, aptly named, I must say. Got a little bit of a different take this week on my show. Ohio State, for example, is on spring break right now. Its football team is, after getting in two practices. They'll come back next week and really, I think they'll start to sort out that quarterback job, although I think it's going to go into August between Cal McCord and Devin Brown, maybe past August. We'll see. We'll see how Ryan Day and his staff handle it. Brian Hartline, the new offensive coordinator, and, of course, quarterback coach Corey Dennis. But it's going to be interesting. It could be neck and neck, really, coming out of the spring. I know we'll all get to see them. The media, we're going to be blessed to maybe see them in two scrimmages before the spring game. But then the public will get their chance to see the competition in the spring game on April the 15th. So it'll be interesting because a lot of times the spring game, it doesn't tell you what you thought you were going to see because, way back when in 2018, for example, it just seemed like Joe Burrow had a slightly better spring game than Dwayne Haskins Jr. did. Dwayne Haskins Jr. got the starting nod, and Joe Burrow ended up transferring to LSU. And we all know what happened with both of those guys. Dwayne Haskins Jr. had a ridiculous 2018 before he left for the NFL draft. Joe Burrow went to LSU. That team sort of struggled in 2018, but in 2019, of course, he had the season of seasons. So we'll see where this all goes. It's going to be interesting no matter what. But I've got speaking of interesting, at least it is for me. I've got my special guest today on the Tim May Show is a fellow I've been trying to hook up with for a couple of months, only because one of the things I've really enjoyed in my life is not only looking at and using, but talking about new technology. And Igor Karlichich and his co-founders of Monarch Sport put together the machine that you've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. use over and over and over in different videos. Matter of fact, Marvin Harrison Jr., as you'll find later in this show, it talks about it, has become an ambassador for Monarch Sport. And it's a machine that throws him and fellow Ohio State receivers, running backs, and even defensive backs, linebackers, throws them passes. It's an automatic rotating machine that you set and forget, so to speak. I mean, it can throw almost every pass in the book, and it can do it in rapid fire fashion. And it's quite the innovation, quite the invention by Igor and his group. And so we're going to get into that conversation in a moment. But I got to say, it was pretty cool watching what the Ohio State men's basketball team did the past week in Chicago. They had to win 5 straight to get to the NCAA tournament after a horrendous regular season. Actually, after a horrendous second half of the regular season. And my goodness, what did they put on a show, winning 3 straight, becoming the first team in Big Ten tournament history to advance from the 13 seed to the quarterfinal round, where they were beaten, to the semifinals, where they were beaten by Purdue, but which went on to win the Big Ten championship. But it was cool to watch. And, of course, they're staying home for the postseason. They're not even going to the NIT because, as Chris Holtman said, injuries, bang-ups, everything else associated with a team at the end of a grueling season finally took its toll on this team. You saw them fighting more with heart than body those last couple of games. But it was cool to see them rebound, pardon the pun, after the horrendous second half of the regular season. And we'll see if that portends big things for this team, which is going to be welcoming in a big-time class for next year, how it carries over into next season. And, of course, Mr. McGuff, Coach McGuff, and the Ohio State women's basketball team is a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament and is moving on. It had its travails the second half of the regular season, but stepped back up and, played pretty well for the most part down the stretch. I think they'd rather forget the championship game in the Big Ten tournament but they can do that now because there's new life, and we'll see how far they can go. But now let's get back to my conversation. As I said, the Ohio State football team took a spring break this week, and I thought it'd be a good time to talk with the man who helped bring along, invent really this passing machine, which is sort of slowly but surely taking the college football world by storm, because it can stand there and do almost everything a quarterback can do except scramble. So, without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Igor Karlichik. I think I got it right that last time. He will tell you the exact way to pronounce his last name in the following interview. But I really enjoyed this conversation. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, I've got one of the co-founders, and I guess you call them inventors, of the Monarc machine that Marvin Harrison Jr. has helped make famous at Ohio State. Igor, say your last name so I don't butcher it, my man.
Karlichik.
Hey, Igor, welcome to the Tim May Show, man. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of months. You and I have been in contact for a while now, and finally in spring, I think it's the best time to put it together, because I'm telling you what, man, every time I'm over at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center in that indoor field, Marvin Harrison Jr., Reese Stocksdale, and all of his buddies are putting that machine through the grind, that Monarch, as I call it, Monarch Gatling gun of a passing machine. But hey, welcome once again to my show, man. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, let's just get right down to it. Number one, what's it like to have, as people heard, Marvin Harrison Jr. corrected me. I called it an NIL deal with you guys, but he said, no, I'm an ambassador. He said he's an ambassador for you guys. But what's it like having maybe the best player in college football being an ambassador for this invention, this machine you guys came up with?
It's phenomenal. I mean, we're super grateful to him, to Ohio State. It's just been it's been phenomenal. So since we've gotten one of our units over there, we've been watching over this past year, the development of Marvin, obviously a lot of the other guys on the team, and it's just been phenomenal to watch. And so this partnership came about because he was our number one user. And we've seen, so much of this stuff, his teammates, the staff on the team messaging us, how much he was putting into that. And that's inspiring. That's why we built what we built. And he's just a phenomenal young man.
I kind of want to be the example for that brand, or for that company. Obviously, the Seeker has helped me a lot in my career this far here at Ohio State. So any way I can promote the company, that's good. Always access to get more catches in when a quarterback maybe trying to rest his arm for the next day or something like that. I still want to get my catches in, so I think that's probably the best use I have for it.
Yeah, this is going to seem like an elongated ad for you guys, but I don't care. I think it's a remarkable machine. Number one. Number two, Marvin thinks it's so remarkable. He didn't. I don't know if demand is the right word, but I think when your star receiver says, "Boy, I sure would like this to be on the truck to Atlanta," when they went to the to get ready to play Georgia in the Peach Bowl, the college football playoff semifinal, it made it on the truck, and they found a place in some big ballroom there at the hotel they were staying at to set it up and use it in the week preparing for that game. And then, of course, he put on quite the show before he got knocked out of the game by a ridiculous hit. But it is pretty cool when maybe the best player in college football is endorsing your product, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was just that moment. Like that's honestly, that's what we live for. We want to see people using our tech, and to have someone of his profile, like you say, demanding to have it there, that's so much validation for our entire team and what we do.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We were actually getting a phone call because they were setting it up, and they misplugged one of the things, and so they were giving us a phone call, and it's just there. You see the guys and the chairs chilling out in the ballroom. But yeah, I mean, it kind of like everyone else, we were seeing the news and when it came out, and it's definitely a joy to have that happen.
Hey, real quick, before we get really into it, how many of these machines are out there right now being utilized by teams across the country? I've been watching on Twitter, y'all's Twitter feed. Obviously, University of Washington's got one, that y'all and basically publicized. I'm trying to think, does Cal have one? Anyway, how many of these machines are out there at this moment?
Yeah, so we've got a number of NFL players. We've got like a dozen NFL players with their own, and then we've got about 20 teams that actually have their own, all D1 teams. But yeah, we just announced our partnership with Cal. We have a few other teams that we're really excited about, but I guess this past season of maybe some of the notable teams that TCU is also a new customer, Tennessee, obviously UW, but we've just seen so much incredible usage over this past year. I'd say the total amount, I think, including, yeah, we got like 40 seekers in the wild.
Wow. So do you guys hand build these? I mean, your co-conspirator, your co-founder, what's his name again?
Yeah, so Bhargav Maganti, my co-founder, and I, yeah, so we have a pretty small team. We came together and we designed this concept originally, and shout out to University of Iowa, obviously, you know, Big Ten rivals, but we started there. So we took this concept. We were, you know, ideating for a couple of years, but then, you know, we took it to the University of Iowa, and they responded super positively, so much so that we moved there and we quit our jobs and we started you know, developing this full time. But yeah, everything ground up. So the outside, the mechanical design, inside, all the software, the tracking, everything is done by our team.
I was going to say that machine threw the ball probably better than their quarterback did this past year, but that's another story for another day. I'm talking about Iowa. Did you just use the word ideating?
Yes.
Okay, give me the meaning. I know, you know, you can figure that out, but I've never heard anybody use the word ideating. What does ideating mean in your parlance?
I'll say so. We spent it's so much of an iterative process, right? So we spent 4 years developing you know, what you see right here in the background. So we went through a lot of different versions, and a lot of that is figuring out the things that work, the things that don't work, and then applying this for all positions on the field. I can, you know, we can create something that's phenomenal, but if you can't wheel it around, it doesn't matter. You're not going to use it. So for all of the different aspects, trying to figure out the little nuances that really make it usable. You know, we were our own GAs, our own equipment managers for such a long time that, you know, that part of it is really streamlined. And then using the product in different ways, it's been, you know, it's a lot of thinking, a lot of creating, redoing, going back to the whiteboard, you know, getting rid of everything and then putting it back up. But you know, the athlete partners that we've had have been really critical for that. Marvin included, you know, creating different features, different streamlines, and really trying to get the best that we can out there.
Hey, give me an idea. Now, you just piqued my interest. Marvin's actually had a little bit of input on the development of this machine.
Absolutely. I mean, as our number one user, it's really important that we make his life as easy as possible. So each device that we have out there is connected. So there's what we say, you know, the hardware, the physical body itself. There's a software that's on the screen, and then there's the connection, the IoT aspect. So that last piece of it, we can create updates, we can create new drills, we can create optimizations for the software, and we can deliver that to all the units that are in the wild. So we had, you know, a number of different tweaks for different modes. You know, we were asking him what makes more sense, you know, in different views. But then, you know, other things like there's one mode that we spray all 6 balls to different body positions. And, you know, what a piece of feedback we got is, well, we can load this quickly enough while it's running that why don't we just extend that? So we made an update to the Seeker where now you can do 6, but you can do 12, 18, 24, 30 balls.
Wow.
And you can just keep refilling it and running it through. So that kind of feedback, both from players and coaches, is really, really critical to the next version of the software that comes out.
Yeah, hopefully as we're talking here, because I took video of them actually doing those kind of things. Marvin and Xavier Johnson and Reese Stocksdale and all these guys running that machine at a recent Ohio State practice. And you know, and let's give a little background here first. As I told you before we started, you know, my memory of a machine like this was the original jugs machine way back when. And I remember Bear Bryant at Alabama, you know, they used that in the 70s to practice punts. You know what I mean? So your punter didn't wear himself out and necessarily in practice and stuff. And, you know, you've seen that machine develop as it's gone along. And what's really funny is Ohio State still has a jugs machine sitting over there, maybe two. And I think it has a generator attached to it. And I'm trying to remember how you're meaning to provide the electricity. And I'm trying to remember your machine, y'all's machine, which is, I mean, except for the spinning wheels, looks totally different, you know, and we'll get into that in a moment. Is it self electrifying? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so we have a battery that that lasts about 6 hours, and it charges up in 90 minutes. So the way that most
is it like a lithium ion battery? I mean, is it a what?
Yes, it's basically a lithium ion battery. Yeah, a massive battery in the front.
Yes, I saw
it. But it's nice because you don't have the, you know, the fumes, and you don't have the noise, and it's it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, y'all borrowed that from Elon Musk, right? I mean, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
We need that endorsement first. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a big T on the battery.
Yeah, buy a Tesla, get a free Monarch machine. I mean, I think one would be just as fun as the other. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, like I said, you know, give credit where credit's due. The jugs machine was interesting because before that, you know, it was basically, I think it was invented originally for baseball. And before that, you had these mechanical iron mics, you know, that would throw a baseball, you know, at people. You can still find those, I think, some places in batting cages and stuff. And of course, the great thing about the jugs was you could put different spins and throw curveballs and fastballs and things like that. But your machine, y'all's machine, that's my Southern. Now you're living in Texas, you know what y'all means. We'll get into your background in a minute, which I think is as fascinating as the machine almost. But y'all's machine, you can, like you just pointed out a while ago, you can program it to throw 12 different passes in a matter of as fast as the thing can go around, right? It will throw one pass and then another. I mean, is that the way it works?
Yeah, so there's a whole array of functions. So we divide the functionality into two modes. There's robotic and manual. Robotic mode is what you're describing, where our users will wear a tracking tag. It'll pick up their position, and then throw them passes. So if you say, I want passes, you know, right above my head, I just want, you know, the zones above my head, you can specify that. But if I press my tag, I don't, you know, a jugs machine isn't going to know exactly how far to throw and at what speed. For us, you specify that. So if I'm standing at 10 yards, you know, a pass over my head is going to be a pass over my head. If I'm standing 20 yards away, again, a pass is it's still going to find you. So robotic mode is those functions, and then you have, you know, like robotic punt as well, where it can find you downfield. Manual mode is where you're dialing in on a field view exactly what you want to do. So for most of our athletes, like you can see, you know, Marv, you know, when he's putting in the overtime work, they'll put in specific routes. They'll put it at the speed and body position that they want, and then they can save that. So they can wheel a seeker out, put it on the field, just press go on a play. The seeker will move to that spot, and they can all get their balls in. So one guy's, you know, filling in the Gatling, as you're calling it, but the revolver, the magazine. And then, you know, guys will be downfield, but they can work on that pass over and over again. So I guess that's kind of been a huge game changer versus the traditional jugs machine, where you don't know where it's going to go. It might take you 10, 15 passes, and ultimately you're not going to end up using it for that piece of it. You're going to use it for punts. You're going to use it for, you know, hand strength, but you're not going to be using it to emulate your QB1.
Yeah, I took a video, did a video with CJ Stroud before the bowl game, but when it was back during a practice, at the end of a practice in Columbus. And of course, there was Marvin Harrison Jr. and his posse over there right behind him as I was shooting it, using that machine. Because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. would use it all day, every day, you know, if somebody didn't tell him, hey, you know, maybe you better stop for lunch. But I was telling CJ, said, hey, look, they've replaced you, man, with that machine over there. And he said, no, not quite, you know what I mean? But he was about to head over there and catch some passes himself. But that to me is what's fascinating about this machine is it's literally like, you know, it takes two to tango usually. I was always a quarterback, and my buddy Mike Lawrence was always a receiver. And we'd go out and turn on the lights at a tennis court, in Lufkin, Texas, and throw the football around. And it was great that he was indefatigable, as I pronounce that word, and I wasn't. But I was a quarterback; I didn't have to move. But now you basically have a robot buddy who can throw you almost any pass, in the book, right? And as a receiver, I mean, we all know that famous video from the summer of Marvin Harrison Jr. launching that ball down the field, or it getting launched, and him running it down.
Yeah.
And that really, you talk about free publicity. That put y'all on the map, didn't it?
Well, it was crazy. That was definitely one of the ones that we got a lot more visibility for. But there were a few other stories, I guess, that kind of made their way through over the years. I think for us in our history. So we started selling in 2020, which is a really unfortunate time to be involved in any sort of organized sports. So we had first 5 customers. We were working with LSU during their championship season, so they were one of our first like prototype users. But we got our first 5 units out there, and then everything shut down. So we couldn't sell. We pivoted to NFL players, and our technology was the only way that they could practice by themselves during quarantine. So, we had a few guys who loved our product so much that they invested in the company. And then we've been modifying, updating, doing a lot of stuff over during that quiet time, and came out with, this version, which is a huge game changer. So, we've seen, I mean, what you're talking about with CJ, like that's really what this is about. So CJ needs to get, 150 reps is what they're probably putting him on for his development over the course of a single practice. Well, you want each of your guys, like Mike, your friend, he needs to be getting 100 reps by himself in order to maintain or improve. So somebody's not getting reps. Basically, we're not here to replace quarterbacks. We're here to make their lives easier, fill in those missing reps and keep quarterbacks healthy is really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, you got to figure NFL coaches that were looking at it like, what, if we could just get rid of that guy that gets hurt every now and then and just put a machine back there, wow, we'd have something. I'm talking about from a quarterback. I'm just joking, man.
Well, no, but that's, I mean, it really is about that. If you're thinking about it, especially at the NFL level, like what is a starting quarterback, what are they worth?
Yeah.
You've had all these stories of overuse injuries and elbows and shoulders and people coming back from rehab and not being able to output as much as they need to. And this is, our technology is the way that you can fill in that gap. Keep your guys who are, making, $20 to $50 million a year, keep them healthy and get everybody else the reps they need.
Yeah. Reps. That's the name of the word, what told you and your co-conspirator, I think y'all had an earlier co-founder too, but he left the building, so to speak. But what told y'all there was that there was a niche here that needed to be scratched?
Yeah. It's so you mentioned the jugs. The jugs was invented over 50 years ago. If you look up the patent, and today the jugs that you have out on the field is virtually unchanged. It's a very similar design. It's like a catapult, like a medieval catapult, right? Like you're moving things. You have a knob that goes from 1 to 10. That's not specific, but you'll have a few equipment guys who really know how to use it well. But even they're throwing a few times to get it dialed into a specific spot. We were working on this as honestly a hobby project where we were thinking, what if we could have somebody actually shoot to themselves? So at the time there was a technology that came out, the technology that we use in our tracking systems that basically it's very accurate, and it was commercially available, and it's not GPS, so you don't have to be outdoors. You can be indoors, and so we put these pieces together. We took it to the University of Iowa and said, like, what do you think about this? And, their response was, we need this, we want this, and so does everybody else. So this, when we talk about the story from the athlete's perspective, that's not our story, but it is the story of every single, skill position in the country. The older brother you never had, or basically the additional reps that you're longing for. Good on you to throw with your buddy Mike, but if you can't line up class schedules, like CJ isn't going to be able to give Marv the reps that he needs, and Reese and Xavier and Amika. Like these guys, everybody needs more reps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To me, what really sets this machine apart, and people will see hopefully in the video, but if it doesn't quite make it, because I'm not exactly a videographer by trade, but my point is, you've got, like you said, you've got this, I call it the Gatling gun look, but you've got this rotating, what do you want to, what do you call it? I call it a manifold because it's where things come from, but what do you call it?
A magazine. Yeah.
Magazine. You have this rotating magazine with how many balls at a time? 6? What?
Yep.
Yeah,
6
balls. And they, they don't just go, but they rotate, boom, shoot through, give you a little bit of pause, boom, shoot through. And that's what really sets it apart from the competition. That just feeds it. I mean, what really sets it apart from the competition is the software involved. And like you said, the ability to interact with the receiver down the field with it. And, whether you're using Bluetooth technology or something like that, I don't know. But like I said, you can program it to throw different things. I was watching these guys, these college kids nowadays, obviously they've been programming probably their whole life in some form or fashion, just using it like they're, writing something in a tablet. And that's what really sets it apart. But how did you know that was the mesh that had to happen? Meaning to get this to where you wanted to get it to, you know what I mean? This machine. And I would think you're working on other iterations as you are ideating or ideating. Yeah. Is it ideating? Is that what you said?
Ideating. Yep.
While you're ideating, your brain probably isn't stopping on this, but how did you finally decide that, yes, this will work? You understand? But what was that aha or voila moment?
Yeah. So it was, I think that first moment for us was when we brought our first prototype. So we built it. So both Bhargav, my co-founder, and I were both mechanical engineers by study. So Bhargav was the design engineer at Boeing. So he was working on aircraft. I was working in industrial automation in Chicago, specifically in the packaging industry. So we were making really large machines for, putting things in other things. But we had the resources, we had the connections, we had the know-how to put together a prototype. So we did that. And then we took it out to Iowa. And at the time, it was actually, a few of the guys, so CJ Beathard was a quarterback at the time. George Kittle was there. Riley McCarron. So we had a lot of those guys who just saw it and gravitated towards it. And their reactions, even with this dumpy prototype that we had, was so powerful that it really compelled us to, quit our jobs and move to Iowa City. But the vision didn't, like, what you see right now isn't the stopping point. It's kind of a means to an end. We have this grand vision essentially of being able to look deeper into player performance. And I don't want to geek out too hard about.
This is good stuff though, man. This is interesting as heck.
But so if you think about training, it's really these little splices, these little interactions, plays that are the difference between winning and losing. The margin for victory in college football is unbelievable. And you look at teams that have barely lost a few games or one or two games that their whole staffs get fired. So the precision and the detail involved in all of this is so high. If you look at each play, it's very meticulous. It doesn't matter how fast you can run. It matters if you can be at your spot, if you can catch and make the play.
Yeah.
So we are thinking about performance in these little slices. If we can track a person, so if we can, if you're running a play and then we throw you a ball, and then if we can see what you did and kind of track that progress over time, then we've built a picture of player performance that can grow and evolve. So our idea here is that this is really the starting point for this kind of technology, but that it's iterative, that it's a feedback loop, that it's that this is a machine that can learn what you're doing over time and grow with you. So right now we're augmenting the reps that quarterbacks are missing, but we also want to augment coaching and be a tool there to say, hey, you know what, if you're catching a lot of these gauntlets and 17% of the time you're not getting your hands underneath it and you're missing on your right side, that's really valuable information. And that's something that no it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in football. It doesn't exist in any other sports. It's like it's a smarter, robo way of training, and the pieces of technology we have are how we believe we're going to get there.
Yeah, even the greatest receivers have favorite spots and non-favorite spots. You know what I mean? And if they can work on those non-favorite spots where the ball can be thrown, I see what you're saying. I mean, I've watched these guys use this quite a bit, but I'm trying to think. Can it throw a slant? I mean, the machine yet? I mean, is that coming where it, you know what I mean, hut and a guy runs a slant and he hits him, it hits him on the run. I mean, correct me if that's already in the program or not. I haven't really noticed that, but I would think that's coming.
It's in the program. So right now, the way that manual mode works is it goes backwards. So you say the target where you want it to go. You can put a delay. So if we're looking at film and we say CJ has the ball out in 1.2 seconds, then you program that delay. Or for corners or anybody on the defensive side of the ball, you can say I'm watching opposing film and I want to emulate a certain look. You can dial that in, but the next version of software actually will be doing a little bit of spoiling some of the fun in the future, but we are going to have the ability to have different plays where it's picking between them, and then maybe you can run a full 7-on-7, and then it'll pick a specific target as opposed to staying lined up for that every single rep.
That's crazy. That's moving on out there. Is this what y'all, quick background on you? Were you born in Serbia, or did your family move from Serbia to Chicago? Give people your background.
Yeah, so I was born in Belgrade, and then we moved here when I was 5 years old. That was in '96. But I've lived in Chicago my entire life. I grew up there, and then I was very adventurous when going to college, so went 45 minutes away to Northwestern, and that's where I met Bargov, who's also a Chicago native.
Yeah, and was it just a quick background, as they say, was it an immediate hit? I mean, between you two guys, I mean, did you? I'm not saying, hey, let's work on a robot quarterback. I'm just saying, were y'all kind of like-minded on stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd instead of studying for the classes that we actually needed to study for, we'd be working on these different ideas, these different designs. Northwestern had this really cool like design shop thing that we would just be there late at night, like designing different things. And so we had a lot of classes together. So we would, our capstone projects, a lot of these things, we would always be working in the same group. So we always had kind of this bug to design, to create. And when this came along, this concept, it was too much to not go, fully into. And I think it'd be interesting for people because neither of us played football. We're not the football guys. We're the engineers. We're the people who love the intellectual kind of puzzle that we have to solve and put all these pieces together. But it really is exciting, and I'd say it's we started because this was just such a stimulating thing to work on. But I'd say now when we see people like Marv putting in the work that they do, and how much this technology means to the athletes, it's we're just super grateful for that.
Hey man, I got to know Adrian Newey. He was the race engineer for Bobby Rahal back at True Sports way back in back in the mid '80s. And of course now he's been the designer of the Formula One. The Formula One, several champion Formula One cars, but with Red Bull, Max Verstappen. And but my point is, he's tried. I mean, he's driven race cars, but he's not your big time race car driver. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. But he's designed the machine that has been dominant many times in Formula One. And it's interesting how you had this concept, how you guys had this concept and you brought it. You didn't just sit there and think about it, you know what I mean, while you went off on your own jobs. What told you that if y'all could get this done, there would be a market for it? You understand? I mean,
shout out to Ben Hansen at the University of Iowa. I think that it was something that it was just such a cool idea that you could train by yourself, but establishing a company around this, that was when we went out there and really got that feedback, because we weren't familiar with what college football looked like, what the NFL looked like, what any of this, just the general sports market. Neither of us were part of that, but It's it was a feeling, it was an intuition when you do see the people who are your target audience react the way that they did, that there's more to this. And if we can figure this out, if we can crack this code, then yeah, like it'll happen, it'll work out.
And like you said, George Kittle, I mean, these guys want as much practice. The big time guys want to get as good as they can get, right? I mean, that's part of the drive here. Real quick, just a couple of things just about the machine and stuff. There's one thing about drawing something up. There's one thing about getting on a CAD cam and putting something together on a computer and stuff. How did you get the fabrication, the actual fabrication of the machine? How much of a pain was that to get, I guess, started or done? You know what I mean? The actual pieces.
Yeah. Not too bad. Specifically because Bhargav and I came from industry, we understood how to find suppliers and how to do all that.
Yeah.
Right now, the units that you see behind me, the stormtroopers over here.
Oh yeah.
So everything that we do is, all the metal you see here is fabricated locally. So we have partners in Arlington, nearby, in Grand Prairie, all around Dallas. And then the pieces come here and we can put that together. But designing and all of this stuff, it can seem very intimidating, and for other founders and companies that are maybe outside of that skill set, you'd have to outsource, right? You'd have to have people who figure that out. That's kind of fortunate for us that we have that in-house, and for the software end as well.
Is this stuff, how much of it's proprietary? In other words, I mean, how much has been patented, or have you gone down that line yet?
Yeah, we have a number of patents. So specifically, what we own is a robot engaging with a tracked athlete via sports projectile. So,
wow.
Sports projectile being the wording here, but it's this is a patent that I'm sure your question is, can we use it for baseball, hockey, all these things? And the answer is yes. But I think specifically what is most motivating about our market and what we're doing in football is, with every other sport, there's always been some way that you can train by yourself. Soccer, you can go kick at a goal. Basketball, you can shoot hoops by yourself. I mean, even tennis, you can go and hit against a wall. But for receivers, you've never been able, you can't throw to yourself. And so that's really cool for us when we bring our technology to somebody who hasn't seen it before, especially if it's on a field, being it clicking one and one, that, oh my goodness, like this changes things. I can finally get in all of this extra work. I've never been able to get a quarterback, or I just can't figure all these things out, and it's here, and you see that at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've seen baseball teams use the jugs machine in their batting cages and things like that. Through the years, we talked about that earlier and stuff. Real quick though, are you headed into those other sports, or have you already gotten there?
I mean, the few things I probably can't comment on, but yeah, there's definitely an intrigue, and we're excited to kind of expand this technology past what you see here.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit down the line. I think our goal right now is getting as many teams using it as well as Ohio State, and then once we have that, kind of bringing our technology to other sports.
Sure. I mean, you don't build a Concorde before you built a Boeing 707, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Is that your point?
That's an analogy for Bhargav. He's gonna he'll.
Well, I could have a great car. I've been intrigued with aviation since I can remember remembering. So I would love to have that conversation. Hey, last thing. Obviously, as like I said, Marvin Harrison Jr. corrected me. He's an ambassador for you guys. Has this been a lucrative business so far, or are you profit making, or is that down the road? Like a lot of EV startups. I mean, how would you describe where y'all are in that realm?
Well, we're definitely an early stage company, but with the traction that we've had recently, we're looking to change that. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely really excited for the future, and we see so much demand from other teams and players that are seeing this, either seeing it from Marv on their on their phones and from our other athletes, or whether they see it in person. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely here to build like a great business, and we're excited by what we're seeing.
Hey, let me follow up on one other quick thing. did y'all approach Marvin about this, or was it vice versa? How did you get hooked up with Marvin, I guess, in the first place, and how long ago was that?
Yeah, so with what we've had with Marvin was just a very real, organic relationship. We Marvin was one of the first people that we saw when we dropped off at Ohio State. So he was just out there. We actually had a session before we were showing the team, um, and we had a late night session where it was him and Zach G. And they were, we're just practicing. He's like you're saying, everybody growing up nowadays, they just anything technological, it clicks for them.
Yeah,
They're digital natives. So he's on the screen modifying things, and we're just, really enjoying how he's, putting all these things together. And then, yeah, obviously we had the implementation the next day and kind of showing the team all of this. We left it there. And when we came back a month and a half later, what you saw at that practice, we were seeing. So just we didn't have to touch anything. We didn't have to teach them. With most of our teams, we do a little bit more of a lengthy implementation, but it clicked for them. They built their own system around this, and
yeah,
they were using it so well. So when you're talking about the partnership that we have, we exchange numbers, and we've been in touch with him. He's been a friend of our company. We lean on him to say, hey, like, what do you think of X, Y, and Z? And so when we hit this off season, Marv hasn't done NIL. He hasn't done any of this stuff because it's a distraction from the game. But we have this relationship where this is a product that he actually really loves.
yeah.
So we co-created this partnership basically where we want him to keep doing what he's doing. We love everything, every part of it, but we also want him to be able to tell his story and for the world to be able to see exactly what he's doing and how he
Who at
lives it.
Ohio State? I mean, how did you get the hookup with Ohio State? Who at Ohio State approached y'all? But obviously, as you well know, Brian Hartline, is he's now the offensive coordinator, but is the wide receiver coach of great repute at this point, and the 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 posse of receivers there is ridiculous. Even now, it was last year. Was obviously 2 first-round draft picks, et cetera. Did y'all kind of approach them as this would be? I mean, how did that? Who made the initial, I guess, call there, one way or the other?
So we've yeah, I
I
mean,
think y'all promoted yourself to everybody to a certain extent, right?
yeah, no, it's a lot of. So we were doing a road tour where we were hitting up a lot of programs in the I guess east of Dallas and kind of moving around. So we were in in a van driving thousands of miles, and we were messaging anybody on the program initially to kind of say, hey, we're going to be here. This is a rare opportunity. We'd love to show you this stuff. And fortunately, kind of going back, a lot of them had seen our NFL players using it, and it's there's a lot of intrigue around the product. Like, I think what most coaches would react and say is, this is amazing, but I have to see it in person.
Yeah.
I don't believe it until I see it here. So we were providing that opportunity, and they opened their doors, and we were able to get an audience with some of the coaches. But that's during their off season, during the actual camp, the season, it's not going to happen.
But do you remember? Did you meet with Coach Ryan Day, or did you meet with Brian Hartline, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do you remember running? Yeah,
Brian Hartline, Kevin Wilson,
yeah,
a few of the other guys. Coach Keys was out there.
yeah,
Coach Day wasn't there at that time, but he obviously, we met him later. But yeah, their reaction was, this is amazing, and we can see how we can plug this in for our own practice in indie periods. But really, it's if the players like it, we're going to take care of them. So
yeah.
to them, it was a litmus test of whether or not their players would gravitate to the technology, and of course things shook out as they did. But it's been a phenomenal partnership, and everybody from the organization, I really can't give enough praise.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick before you go, it's really funny because I've always sort of watched this. I've been covering Ohio State football for 40 years, and I call it a graveyard of blocking sleds and all these different things that have come along. The better blocking sleds, and and now they're all about reaction machines and anything that builds what you call functional strength as opposed to just lifting, but building things that you would using things to get stronger that you would use on a football field. You understand what I'm saying and stuff. But I think this thing's going to avoid the junk pile for the for the next latest greatest thing for quite a while. It does have staying power, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, that's a big part of what we're trying to get across. So an education campaign of what it can do, how it's evolving, and so much of this is the service that comes with it. So the evolving software, the new things that we're putting out there. But yeah, it's phenomenally sticky, and it's because it's addressing that need, that intuitive need for athletes to get, the thing that they've always been missing. So that limiting factor of, somebody going from, third string to first string, it's experience, it's reps, and it's putting in the work. And we enable that in a way that no other product in the market can.
Igor, I knew this was going to be an interesting conversation, and it was, at least for me, and I appreciate you talking down to me so I would understand things.
No, not at all.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the Tim May Show, man, and we'll hook up again. But hey, good luck in this endeavor, because I'm always intrigued by the latest, greatest. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I've always been intrigued by open wheel racing like IndyCar and Formula One, just the way they're cutting edge one way or the other. Somebody's trying to find a quicker way to go and a quicker way to get there. You understand what I'm saying? And I think this is very interesting. But thanks for joining me, my man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was my pleasure.